Operation Valamgoti continues to unearth illegal miners and bodies from disused mine shafts in parts of the country. Another abandoned gold mine has been discovered in Sabi in Mpumalanga. 3 bodies have been pulled out of that shaft yesterday and 8 illegal miners were rescued. Over 100 zamazamas are believed to be still underground. Some aid organizations have started requesting donations and other forms of assistance in order to help those that are still underground. To discuss this, I'm now joined by National Coordinator at Save Our Sacred Lands, Julie Eccles, who's joining us now. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Just speak to us about your organization and the need that you have put together a Backer Buddy account in order for you to be able to assist miners. What are you trying to achieve with this?
Hi, good morning, Katlego, and thank you so much for having me on. Good morning to your viewers. I'm here today representing a collective of concerned citizens and members of civil society in the wake of this unfolding crisis with miners underground in Stilfontein and elsewhere. We know that up to 4,000 miners are trapped underground, which means that this is a large-scale humanitarian crisis that has already been covered internationally. This is a crisis that is of the making of law enforcement and the state. These miners are actually, when they are referred to as illegal miners, this is a very dehumanizing language, and it's language that is causing a lot of apathy in the public, even discrimination in the public. So just to recap on what the situation is on the ground is that this is an old mining town, the one in Stilfontein. It's an example that is replicated across the country, where the town itself is built around mining. The entire economy is built around mining. And then the company will close the shafts and not do its due diligence or not comply with NEMA and other things, and leave that entire community without any form of employment, without any development. And this leaves people totally desperate. Most of the people in the mine are miners by vocation, they're miners by trade, and they have no other opportunities, no other jobs. And so they're really going down into the depths of the earth, risking their lives in order to feed their families. So we've seen a lot of really unfortunate misinformation in the public, and we'd really like to correct that misinformation. Newzroom has done an excellent job reporting on the ground, but still we're seeing so much misinformation elsewhere, and we'd really like to correct that. And at the same time, we'd really appeal to members of the public to assist. So we're watching people dying at a rapid rate. These are human beings. They are the brothers, the breadwinners, the husbands, the fathers of community members. And the community is begging for us to please save them. We've seen letters surfacing this week along with dead bodies, begging people, saying that the bodies are piling up down there. Some are decomposing. People are really fearing for their lives. And I don't think any of us, not you, not me, none of us would want to be almost 2 kilometers underground in the pitch dark, not knowing whether we're going to live or die. So that's the situation that we find ourselves in at this present moment.
Right. So maybe just to touch on what you've mentioned, I mean, I want us to go back to talking about the rehabilitation of these mines by the mine companies that are supposed to be responsible for this. But just with regards to the misleading rumors and the misinformation that you speak of, and saying that referring to them as illegal miners is incorrect. And I believe many South Africans would be aggrieved by that statement, because in how else do you describe the activities that are going on underground?
Yeah, this is artisanal mining. So these miners are skilled miners. They don't have, the safety equipment and so on that you would have in a formal operation, but they are artisanal miners, and they are doing what they can to survive.
But many would argue that the revenues that are collected from that artisanal mining are not going through the correct channels, and therefore they would then be described as illegal.
So you see, these minerals that are being extracted, right, are being sold to someone. And we know who they're being sold to. It's being sold to the big companies that have always been extracting from South Africa, extracting our minerals, our labor, and, profiting massively off of that. This country itself, during apartheid, was built around the mining sector, around the exploitation of poor Black people. And that has not changed. That fact has not changed to this day. So someone is buying these so-called illegal minerals, and the people who are buying it are the same companies that closed those mines, and they're profiting to the tune of R1 trillion a year in illicit flows of cash that is leaving our country. So if anyone is illegal, so to speak, I think we should point the finger at those mining companies who, as you've mentioned, have failed in their duty to do a proper closure of the mines and to provide other alternative means of income and vocations and so on for the people in the community.
Do you think not enough responsibility has been put on these mining companies with regards to rehabilitation? Do you think our government has gone easy on them with regards to the repercussions that are meant to be there when rehabilitating these mines?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one can look at any of the benchmarks reports, of the information coming out of mining affected communities in Action, Makua, any of these communities. Even if you speak to people on the ground, you know what the companies do. They come in, they displace people often, they poison the water, so those who are grazing animals as a mean of income can no longer graze their animals. And then what they do is they really provide one means of income, and that is mining. So it really blocks all other kind of opportunity for skills development and so on. And then shockingly, what they do afterwards is they leave, and they don't abide by our laws. The MPRDA Act, which is the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act, as well as the National Environmental Management Act, or NEMA. And they simply leave. And because the community is powerless, the community doesn't have access to justice, access to legal resources. These communities are really thrown to the wolves. And so there is no accountability, there's no responsibility that's being taken by these big mining companies. And it really, the onus is on government to hold them accountable. The onus is also on us as the public to ensure that they are held accountable. They are breaking the law. And this situation is really, as you can see with this current crisis, becoming a systemic problem, or it is a systemic problem in South Africa.
And surely that accountability should be just as equal for those artisanal miners that are underground. I mean, earlier on, we heard a briefing from the Premier of Mpumalanga, Premier Mandla Ndlovu, and he was speaking of the after effects and just some of the challenges that are posed by this artisanal mining, the pollution to the water, of course, the loss of revenue, and one which we cannot ignore, which is the terrorism that takes place within and around those communities by those same miners.
Okay, so yeah, these are, systemic problems that arise when a community is facing deep and lasting poverty, right? We know that South Africa is run by syndicates in every industry. Some of those syndicates are legal. They're businesses, suit and tie corporations that are running syndicates. Others are illegal. People who are desperate, people who are poor. So our entire country, every industry has syndicates. And of course, we're concerned about crime, we're concerned about kidnapping and all of these things that are happening in communities. But what is the source of the problem? Where did all of these problems start? It starts with the corporations that are creating the environment where these type of things thrive. And so again, we have to ensure that accountability goes back to them. We as the public, and of course news media and journalists and so on, remember it's our duty to hold the powerful accountable, not the people on the ground who are powerless against this. So, we do find criminality in a lot of communities. It is the job of law enforcement and SAPS to investigate that criminality and to prosecute accordingly. At this current moment, no one has been charged with a crime as yet. So should the artisanal miners leave with minerals, they could be charged with a crime. At this current moment, all they're asking is to be rescued. So all they're asking is to be brought to the surface. And should they be brought to the surface, the one thing that they can be charged with is a misdemeanor for trespassing on private property. But further than that, they haven't actually been charged with anything. So again, we have to look at the power dynamics in our country and what is the root of this problem. Otherwise, we're never going to solve any of these problems about crime and so on.
And your take on the fact that many of those that also have resurfaced are illegal foreigners in South Africa?
I haven't heard any reports of so-called illegal foreigners. What we do know is that there are many of those miners who are members of the community, the local community in Northwest. Some are also from Eastern Cape. Of course, there will be people from other African countries amongst them as well. But again, it's really bizarre that the emphasis is on the person's nationality and where they come from, as opposed to the fact that they're dying in their hundreds underground, and that we are all treating this as if it's not a problem. So we have to remember something. 15 million South Africans at this current moment are undocumented. So they don't have ID books. Many of these people are AIDS orphans. Many of them grew up in child-headed households. They don't have IDs. And so we also have to ask ourselves, how do we know who is down there and who isn't down there, other than relying on the wisdom and the information of the community who's telling us, these are our brothers, these are our husbands, these are our breadwinners, these are our fathers. And we have to understand that tarring them with this brush of so-called illegal people. Remember, during apartheid, what was the number one myth that white people spread to exacerbate racism in South Africa? It was black people are criminals. See how similar the language is when we're talking about illegals. It's really dehumanizing, and it's incredibly dangerous. And I think for us, if we're ever going to solve crime in our country, if we're going to solve our economic problems, we have to unite and come together and point the finger at the powerful companies and the state that are really causing these problems.
Most certainly true, Julie, but I also believe that we need to be honest and have open conversations as South Africans with regards to the ills within our societies, so that when we do get to those solutions that you speak of, we truly are dealing with problems in the way that they truly are. But thank you so much for your time and for joining us this morning. That is Save Our Sacred Lands, Julia Eccles. She is the national coordinator there, speaking to us about the rescue efforts that they as an organization are putting together in assisting the artisanal miners that are still underground in Stilfontein.